Alright, finally, it's working, and compared to yesterday, now it's actually public. I don't know why, but somehow it was turned private, which I don't think really helped the statistics, but also, I mean, just I actually had to change it to public afterwards anyway, so now this should be live for everyone to see, but just in case, I will double check. Yeah, so it is live again. Okay, let's drink a bit of water and crack on. So let's put that to the side, pop this here, and yeah, unfortunately I cannot seem to watch my stream, I don't think, but let me just double check just so that I can see if any interaction is occurring, but I'm not sure about that. Let me just see your videos. Live? Yeah, no, so it's not popping up on my own account for me to watch, which is a bit of a shame, I guess, but is what it is. Yeah, I don't know how people do that stuff. Anyway, let's crack on. So if we go to YouTube, is that my video? Yes, it is.
I'm going to talk about.
Oh, that's loud, at least for me. Let's see.
Components and
What is
props.
this? Most
You
replayed.
probably have seen me done this. You have seen me adding a component into another Svelte components, and I promised you back then that I would make another video to talk about this in more detail. So the time is now.
Components and props.
Components in more detail. So here I have a component called app.svelte, and I have another component called component.svelte. Bad naming, but bear with me. So here, to use this.
What I think I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a new document because fork save. Yeah. Saved apps. Search. And I think this gives me a new one. So if I call this test, it's not there. That's not good. Or maybe because I didn't save it. Let's try again. Test. Pop something new in here. New world. Plus me. Give that a save. And then now you're saved up. Yeah. So it would be nice to have a button to have a new, like, create a new one, because otherwise, like, I don't really want to be, you know what I mean? Like, create a new document, because I know you've got app.svelte, but you can only have components. So if I name this app.svelte, I think it might break something, so I don't want to do that. But anyway, got a point. So let's go. So we've got script, and we've got that. Okay.
Components, what I do is I need to import from this file. This allows us to create multiple tabs, and this is actually multiple files in your file system if you are developing locally. So each of them are named .svelte. So you have to import it to use in your component. So you can come here and say import component from component.svelte. So
okay. Yeah, so I had the right idea here, I guess. From dot component dot Svelte looks the same, except I've got. Actually, that's one thing I need to look up, or maybe someone can tell me what the difference is between. Well, I know there's not very much difference. But which one's more traditionally used, or I should be using? You know, with the the colon or the quotation marks, I think you call it. Anyway, the end point.
So, one thing to take note is that you're importing from a default export. So this is one key thing about .svelte file, is that your component itself will be a class, and then it will be in an export default. So you import it from the default exports, and to use it, you use it like any other elements. In brackets, and then say component. So one thing to differentiate between what is a component and what is an element, because you could write something like this, and how does Svelte knows that whether this is a component or an element? So the differentiator is that component starts with a capital letter, and element starts with a lower case letter. So I believe this is quite prevalent in other frameworks as well. Anything that starts with a capital letter is always a component. Anything that starts with a lowercase will be a element. So this is how I use my components, and I'm not sure you're paying attention to me speaking, or you actually are looking at the screen, because at the screen right now you already see a component, right? This is a component that I've written over here. If I change it,
I just realized I'm getting an error. Browsing overall. Plugin to resolve this issue. Are you the issue? Yes, you are. Why?
my components, and
Shush. Import component from dot slash and then com.
And I'm not sure you're paying attention to me speaking, or you actually are looking at the screen, because at the screen right now you already see a component, right? This is a component that I've written over here. If I change it, say hello, then yeah, you can see that over here, reflected over here. This is the components. I can create multiple components if I want. They will be created this way, and there's no limit in your components where how many top level elements, right? There's no such thing, right? You can have multiple divs as you want. Come over here, I have like 2 divs, 3 divs. Okay, I don't think we can see a difference. Let's say 1, 2, 3. You can have as many divs, as many top level elements in one component as you want. There's no limit at all.
Makes sense.
What's the point, right? So here you have components, 4 components.
But it's separation of code, no?
Then having a components in your in your components, having a nested components in your components, it's not that fun at all if you just show like content that it has, right? You can have logics in your component itself. But what's great about what's more interesting is what if you can pass the data from I will call this the parent components to the child components. Right? I call this a parent, and this component is a child because
That'd be quite good.
parents bear a child, right? So anything that is used inside is considered a child component by this current component, which is called the parent. So you can pass data from parent to the child. How? Pass it by we call it props. So same thing as how you will pass things, attributes to elements. You can pass attributes to components, and we call it props, right? We don't call it attributes, we call it props. So you can pass something like over here I have name, right? So I can pass name to the component as props, And same thing that you need to remember as well is that same as how you can write attribute shorthand, you can have shorthand for props as well. So this and this are the same. If the attribute name and the value variable name is the same, you can do it this way. So how do I receive it within the child component? Well, of course, probably I have something like a variable, right? I need to receive it into a variable. And how do I make this variable a prop? Well, you use exports. So use exports let name. Then this way what you define is this name is the props. So you have to follow exactly the name itself. Right? If you come over here and say Nami, then this is not the props that you're passing in, you are passing in something else. So you can only pass, you have to make sure that this name and this is the same. Okay, and once I do that, I can come over here and use it. Right, I'm gonna say component, I'm gonna put it a div so that you can see clearly. Right, so I said div components and a name. So I passed wool for the first two cases. And over here, I didn't pass it because I call it Nami.
That's what I could have.
Means something else. I don't know what it is. And this I didn't pass anything, so I get undefined as well. Right? It does not have to be a variable. You can pass it with like a string. Right? This works as well. So what if the case that you didn't pass, but you want to have a default value? So anytime when you don't pass something, but I want to show a default value, what do I do? Well, it's like defining a variable. Like right now you're defining a variable. What do you do to provide a default value for the variable before you do some changes? Well, you set something, right? So you come over here and say default, say Svelte is amazing. Then this will be the default value. And as you can see over here, the last component does not pass in anything, does not pass in name. Then the name will have the default value, which is Svelte is amazing. It is amazing, it isn't. If it feels amazing, click like on the video. So we've seen how you can create props. You can have default value of the props. And one thing I want to show you is a lot of times we are lazy. So we like to do things lazily. So what if I have over here is this component, I have two props, export let name and then export let email. So I'm gonna have default email address as well, at blah.com. And I'm gonna say email, right? And I'm lazy in a sense where
Shush. Writing this in the wrong one. Name Bob. And Bob. No.
email lihao at lihao.com. This is not a real email. Don't email me to this address. So what if you have this object and you want to add it to your component? You would have
Okay, so it's done it like Okay. And then just to clarify it like that. I don't know what I'm doing, but is that illegal? Yeah. That seems to be illegal. Illegal. Do something like this. I'm messing around with this for no reason, but at this point I'm making a bloody month marker. Yeah.
Have to basically come over here and say object.name email equals to object.email, right? This is what you have learned so far. This is what you have to do.
Yeah.
But humans are lazy, and lazy humans come up with.
I will actually have that though. So we've got name, and we can do so name equals to and then obj dot name, and then is it no wait, email equals to email. Yep. It's good.
Lazy ways to work around things. If you remember cases where if you have an object and you want to copy some of the properties to a target object, you can spread the values, the properties of the object over, right? So if I have a target and I want to copy everything from here, I can do a spread. Right? So
this is new to me.
same idea goes. I can come over here and copy this because I'm going to prove it's the same thing. I can come over, copy this, and I'm going to paste it in over here. So this spreads the object into the props. As you can see, let me comment this out. This is the one that we already spread the objects into the props. And so it has name and email, so it's spread and you get name and email over here. Of course, you don't, I think this is a bit ugly to me. It's hurting my eyes. Usually I write it within just one line so that it looks concise and compact.
I don't like it and I don't really know what it does, but I will copy it just so that I know. Because yeah, no, not a fan. Can I do it like so? But this is kind of also like how this is supposed to avoid repeated code. Oh no, is that with the object? But if I pop in the target, then so target actually is not working. So I'm not being stupid, am I? Or no, that would not be the case, because I put target in the brackets. That's wrong. Yeah. Okay.
So I can come over here and write this. You can spread props. So what we have learned so far: components, imports components, default exports. You write props. How do you create props? Exports, syntax.
We don't actually need this constant then. You don't.
Allows you to create props. And default props, as long as you define the props with a value, that is the default value.
Let me just again.
Default exports, you write props. How do you create props? Exports, syntax allows you to create props. And default props, as long as you define the props with a value, that is the default value if the props is not passed in. And we have seen how you can be lazy, spread your props into the components using this syntax where you spread like an object, right? Like how you will spread an object, you come over here and do the same thing. 3 dots and it's spreaded.
Step into Wix Studio, where creative freedom meets absolute efficiency.
So we have learned about how we can use elements by passing in attributes, as well as how to add event listeners to elements. And in the last video, we learned about components. We learned about components can be used almost as the same way as elements, and you can pass in props almost as the same way as you can pass in attributes to the elements. So, can an component attach any event listeners? Well, we'll take a look in this video. So over here, I've prepared an example. I've created a component called profile, and I pass in props, just like how we pass in attributes. I pass in props. I have a name called Li Hao, which is me, and then I have a state in this video. So over here, I've prepared an example. I've created a component called profile, and I pass in props, just like how we pass in attributes. I pass in props. I have a name called Li Hao, which is me, and then I have a status, which is status that I'm currently learning Svelte. Okay, so in my component, I declared 2 props, name and status. That's how I pass that in. And I also have this button called skill points. It's a local state skill point, and I have buttons that I can increment or decrement my skill point. So if I click, you can see my skill point is increasing or decreasing. Not quite sure what to do with the skill points yet, but that is how this component works. So if I want to know when my skill point has changed, what should I do? If I want to know my skill point, whether my when my skill point has changed from this parent component, from the app.svelte, what should I do? Well, one way is I can firstly, of course I need a callback function so that I can do something when that change. So I can define on skill point change, and hopefully this is some sort of event, right? Maybe like skill point, the new skill point, and what I want to do over here is just to console it out so that you can see that it's being called. So you can say on skill point change, and then my new skill point. So how do I pass this function into my component? Well, you can pass anything through the attribute, through the props. So it could be string, it could be numbers, and it could be functions as well. No one says that you can't pass in a function as a props. So I can come over here and say maybe on skill point change and pass in my props. And because the props name and the variable name is the same, I can actually use this prop shorthand or the attribute shorthand. So of course I need to define these props, or else I can't receive it. So I'm gonna define this on skill point change, and I need to use it as well. I need to come over here and call this with the updated skill point value. So come here and say skill point, and I need to do it for my skill point over here as well. Okay, looks good. So let's come over here and take a look at the console. So if I change something, you can see that this function is being called, right? That's good. Because if you take a look at this, you say, okay, this has to be called every time skill point is changed. Actually, we can use a reactive statements, right? No one says you can't do that. So I can come over here and say on skill point change skill point. So this statement, let's take a look. When will this be called? Whenever on skill point has changed or whenever skill point has changed. Exactly what we want. So we can come over here, click. You can see that this is being logged out whenever any of it has changed. Okay, so far so good. Yep. But what if I come over here? Okay, I'm not sure whether you like the buts, but buts is how I segue into what I want to share next. So if I come over here, I have another profile called me again, and learning component events. Okay, but this time around for this profile, I don't want to know about when the skill point change. Right? I can know and I can just don't care about it. Right?
Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually work on this sort of thing. So what I'm thinking, right, is I want it a bit different to his. Also, he's got a lot of like implementation. That is, I mean, nice to know, but I don't really need. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have in here a button, right? And then once I get the button, I can have. Actually, when he does a profile, does that automatically? Okay, I see. So this creates a button that's got. I see. Yeah. So each of them are gonna get their own button now. Makes sense. So what I can do, actually, I might be better off doing in a different component. Just for sanity's sake, let's go to component 2. And have the button in there and then say click me, and then import that one over. So we can go to component 2 from component 2, and then we can have component 2. And then we could have like a break, I guess, in here, just because. That's one. Break, and then we can have a few more component 2s. If I have in a div, put the buttons in a div, then that should put them in different like spaces. And that'll just circulate in the different lines then. Yeah. It needs to be. Yeah, like that. Okay. And then now into the components. So he's provided the name and everything. But instead, he's done that. And he also provided the function. So, in all essence, I don't want to really be messing with the function. I don't really care about the name. Because that's what I don't know how to do. So, we have function. And the name. Print. Can I use that, or is that like a restricted thing? It's probably restricted, but anyway. Print and console log and then clicked. essence, what I'm thinking, right, is actually I've got an idea. We could have it so we could have yeah. So btn name equals to that's the thing though, he uses quotation marks some places, he uses colons and others. I don't know. Anyway, let's use quotation marks now. Let's call it click plus print. And I'll get the other one as click. Just click. Actually, no, I think it just makes sense of the argument. And then now, I come in here. Instead, I need to have a script first to take in the information. And once I've done that, then I can have let export let bt and name is it called btn name? That didn't work, but yeah, btn name, yeah. Oh no, I think I know why it's shut anyway, because I'm not actually using it. So if I do btn name, yes, exactly. So that's working as expected. And now I can have how is he use the
not
the on scale so he said on scale when that changes print at the scale point. So I mean that's a way. One thing I'm thinking is just I guess assigning it to a certain one. So what I would do, that's actually trippy, print something, and then I guess give it to them. And I can call it function can equal print something, and then I can have export that, print something, and then if I do print something here, I'm not actually functioning yet. That's not what I was expecting. points change. I need to actually put the what we call them. But how? Because when he had it as search, what was it? $sign, this sign, print somehow. No. Well, that was in the script. Yeah. Alright, let's look at. That's how I would have done it, but obviously that's not working. So let's see how he's gonna do it.
But what if I come over here? Okay, I'm not sure whether you like the buts, but buts is how I segue into what I want to share next. So if I come over here, I have another profile called me again, and learning component events. Okay, but this time around for this profile, I don't want to know about when the skill points change. Right? I can know and I can just don't care about it. Right? Not all the events I want, not everything I want to know, right? So for this case, I don't want to know. But then because we kind of assumed that on skill point change is a function, because we call it no matter what, then that is a problem to us, and we kind of have to. So the way to work around this is we have to check if type of is a function, then we call this, right? So there's two ways. I jumped the gun too fast, but actually there's two ways to work around this, right? First is every time when you want to call this on skill point change, you check whether it's a function. If it's a function, then you call it. Another way that if you assume that it's either always a function or it's just that not being passed in, then you can have a default function over here, default value for on skill point change, right? So if it's not passed in, then it's always this fallback function, and if it's defined, then yeah, you can call. So if you know that it's either passed in and always be a function or not passed in, then you can do it this way. So two ways that you can do, right? Every time when you call, you check if it's a function. Secondly, it's you provide default fallback function, so that if it's not provided, you can still call it. You can still it's fallback to a function, so that you can always trust that it's always a function.
Well, why is this not working? Print something. Print something. Oh. I've called it func, not print something. Bloody hell. But that's still not solved it. That makes more sense. Because I'm not gonna print, I'm gonna print something as the function.
Call this up, you have to every
Come back,
okay.
come back. Yes, we just so using it like a so. What I think I want to do is do it the way he's doing, just to make sure that my way is not working. And then I can have it as print something now. And then I can have print something. And here. I could if it worked. But it doesn't.
2 points. Want to call. Another is just that not being passed.
But why? But why? That's how he's got it. Oh. Why isn't it recognized? Oh. I'm getting finessed. At point. At this point, I'm just like copying what he's got to see where I've messed up. But in theory, it shouldn't be an issue. This is unused exponent. And something. Export let. But that's what I used. Because in there its point doesn't change, but what if I've got point plus plus? I don't know, but that doesn't. Okay, so function add and then add and then here I can have point. Now if I click it, no. Oh, because I actually have the function add in there. Fair play. Why am I messing up? I don't get this. Function. You see, adding it to the divs. Getting baffled. Because he's got the function. But I want to see.
You can see
Yes.
when my component works.
Implement
So
that.
then I can increment.
Oh, I had to implement a listener. Silly. Okay. So then, okay. Yeah, that's what I forgot on. Click. Equals to add. And then and they're individual, so I mean that's always good. But that's friendly. Also print something so that I can have click do this, and we can have it to do this as well, maybe. Ah. Okay, this works in a silly way. Because obviously I've got onClick twice. And that's not really good, is it now? I could tell ChatGPT to fix this, but I'll skip that for now.
Or decrements my skill points. So if I click,
But it does work.
see my skill point is increasing or decreasing.
Okay, where was I? Let's get back to where we were.
Then you call, which is to events, we component events. So let's take a look.
But even here, even though I didn't really provide anything, even the fact that I haven't provided with the actual function, it's not running it. But then obviously, let's say if I wanted to
before right, it should be more like an event, but now I'm gonna call it as skill point change as the name of the event, and I can pass in this function instead. Right, this is to handle when this event has it's been dispatched. Right, so over here, I'm not gonna listen to, so I'm not passing it in, and here I can. So it's an optional thing, right? Whenever you do this, you know that it's kind of like optional. It's like event listeners for your elements. So
makes sense. I've done it in my own dodgy way.
Able to dispatch this event. I can come
So
over here and I need something called event dispatcher. So I'm gonna come here.
Shut Windows, shut.
Create event dispatcher. Oops. And this is a function that creates the event dispatcher. So let me call this function. So this function itself, the create event dispatcher, has to be called during a component initialization, meaning it has to be called at the top level when we so all these are going to be called during the component initialization, right? So you have to call it at the top level. You can't create event dispatcher within a function, right? That does not work. If you try to call it here and decrement, you will see that you will throw an error. It says that function called outside component initialization. Well, why is this so? Well, this is because when during component initialization, Svelte knows that, okay, I want to initialize this component, this instance of this component. So it's remember, okay, this is the component I'm setting up, and then whenever I call this function, so this function itself, you import directly from Svelte, right? So this function itself has itself kind of like stateless, but at the same time, it's when it.
I think I missed out on him importing that, so I don't really know what that's supposed to do.
I can come over here, and I need something called event dispatcher.
But why?
Here I can. So it's an optional thing, right? Whenever you do this, you know that it's kind of like optional. It's like a event listeners for your elements. So how do I make my component to be able to dispatch this event? I can come over here, and I need something called event dispatcher. So I'm going to come here and I'm import create event dispatcher. Oops. And this is a function that creates the event dispatcher. So
what does that do?
Call this function. So this function itself, the create event dispatcher, has to be called during a component initialization, meaning it has to be called at the top level when we.
This is actually explain what it does.
So all these are going to be called during the component initialization, right? So you have to call it at the top level. You can't create event dispatcher within a function, right? That does not work. You try to call it here and you try to decrement, you will see that you will throw an error. It says the function called outside component initialization. Well, why is this so? Well, this is because when during component initialization, Svelte knows that, okay, I want to initialize this component, this instance of this component. So it's remember, okay, this is the component I'm setting up, and then whenever I call this function, so this function itself you import directly from Svelte, right? So this function itself has itself kind of like stateless, but at the same time, it's when you call this, it will read. You ask Svelte, hey, what is the component that you are currently initializing, right? When because this function is not coming from anywhere within this component, right? It's not some function that pass it in. So this function within this function itself has to ask Svelte, okay, what is the component you are initializing, and then okay, this function, okay, I'm gonna register, I'm gonna get something from this component, right? So you get the dispatch function, you get what is the component was initializing at that point of time. So you get this dispatch function, and then you can dispatch events. So dispatch events is like how you would dispatch an event on your elements, right? Element can dispatch an event so that anyone from outside can listen to it. So I get this dispatch function, and I'm come over here. So whenever skill point is changed, I want to dispatch a new event. So there's two parameters. First is
let me just quickly copy this down and create a dispatcher from Svelte and then kind of constant dispatch dispatcher
I want to dispatch a new event. So there's two parameters. First is the name of the event. So I come over here, I kind of assume that I'm gonna listen to this event called skill point change, right? So I copy this and I'm gonna paste this in. So this is the name of the event, and then and then the next thing is I'm gonna pass the data, whatever I'm gonna call with the event. So okay, so I don't need this on skill point change anymore. I'm gonna remove this. So let's take a look over here. Over here, when I change something, okay, you can't see it because this is no longer the new skill points. Okay, so if you inspect this, you will see that this is actually the event, right? And okay, I think as always, I told you don't take my word for it. So you should always inspect element and take a look. So go to console, I clear everything, and I'm gonna click over here. You see that this is a custom event, and event has this property called detail, and detail is the data that we pass along with this event. So I'm gonna close this and I'm gonna say events.detail, which is the data that I pass in from here. So this is the event detail. I can pass in anything. I can pass in a string, a number, an object, an array, and anything that you can think of. So events.detail over here, and now if I decrement, you can see that it still works. You can have on skill point change and print out the
well, I can't really see, can I?
Right, the current skill points. So this is a way that you can dispatch an event from a component by creating event dispatcher and then dispatch the event. And as you can see, how we work through then and decides that okay, we need to use an event dispatcher is realize that this way, when we do it this way, it kind of decouples from the user perspective, the user of this component versus the internal of the components, right? Right now it decouples where you don't assume that this event is always being listened by the user. It's not always being passed in. You don't have to always pass in a function. We can always dispatch an event and anyone can listen or not. It's optional, right? So
okay, that makes sense, but I'm not sure how to implement it into mine. A little bit different. Console dispatch function add I got a print now. Yeah, no, I don't think I can implement it. I understand what it's doing. So
you see
I'll
that
just leave it at that for
we
now.
can click on both components
Anyone
skill
else?
points. We can
Nope.
change the both skill points, but it does not throw an error if I'm not listening to it. It's optional. So at some sense it's being decoupled already. Whether you're listening or you are dispatching, it's decoupled. So that's why so to use this events listener, you add event listener as the same way as adding event listeners to your elements. You add on skill point change. You pass in a function just like how you would, and you can pass in data for your event. So this will be the data. If you don't pass anything, it will be undefined. Don't take my word for it. It should be undefined in the event.detail. And let's see. Oh wait, what? Okay, so right now if you look at this statement, dispatch, what are the dependents, right? The dispatch, all the skill points. This is a string, so if this change will, so right now if I change skill point, it will not re-evaluate these statements. So one workaround is I can add, I can call this skill point and then comma, so that this whole statement will be evaluated when skill point or dispatch has changed. So if I come over here, and then you can see that right now it's okay. That's why I told you not to take my word for it. It's null instead of undefined. If you don't pass anything, it's null. Right, so your event.detail will be null. And if I change it back, now you will see that it's the value again. So that's how you create events for your components.
A CRM shouldn't
That's quite
weigh
cool.
your budget down. It should lift your team's
So many adverts. Bloody hell.
In the last video, we talked about component events, and in this video, we are still going to talk about component events because there's one thing that I didn't mention about in the last video, which is I feel it's important and you should know about component events, which is about event bubbling. So event bubbling, it's not a concept in it's a concept in elements events. So if you have elements like this over here, as you can see, when I click on any of the buttons, element button 1 or 2, and the events will bubble up to the parent. So even if I click on the buttons and I don't, the events will be bubble up, meaning any of the parents that listens to the event should be able to should be able to trigger the events handler even if it's on the parent level, right? So this button, when I click, if it has an event listeners, it will be handled, and then it will bubble up. If it's not prevent propagation, then it will propagate up, right? It will go to the parent, which is this div, and then go to this parent, and then in this parent you have the event listeners registered. You are listening to on click. So the on element button click, event listener will be triggered, and therefore you can console out the value. Of course, it's still the events target, the elements that is this the click is on is these two buttons. So if I check the dataset dot value, which is the data value attribute over here, I can get button 1 or 2, right? So if I click
on click. What's wrong? What's wrong with you? On click. Oh no, I know. Oh, no, there she is. Con. Right, do I need this? Is that? Active on class. Hmm. On click button on click. Yeah, I mean it's not really propagating up, so I don't know.
On
Anyway.
element button 1 or button 2, you can see that this is being triggered and you can get button 1 or button 2. So this is events bubbling in DOM elements. But what about components? If I have in the app, I have this parent component, listening to this component button click, right? So if I look into parent, I have another component called child. Look in the child, I have another component called grandchild. And in the grandchild, I have another component, which is, okay, no, it does not have. So it has two buttons. Same two buttons. I have button 1
I'm
and button
definitely not
2.
replicating this.
Wait, hold on. Button 2 does not have on click. Let me add it in. So button 1 and button 2 have two on click event listeners. And over here, I am dispatching component events. I
So
use
much around.
create event dispatcher to create a dispatch, and I dispatch component button click event. And I pass in the events. I pass in data like button 1 and button 2, so that the component when I listens to it, I can get event.detail and will access the button 1 or button 2. So will this event, when I click, will it bubble up to the parent, which is this child component, to its parent, which is this parent component, and then to its parents again, which is this app.component, and receives it from here, and the name is the same, and then you get handle over this on component button click callback function, handler functions. Will it work? Well, let's see. Let's click. Well, it does not work. Okay. That's why we make this video, because I'm going to tell you how you can make it work. So so first and foremost, I have to tell you, unfortunately, component events does not bubble, meaning it does not go it does not go through all its parents and then bubble up all the way to this app.svelte, right? It does not bubble all the way to this parent component over here. So what I can do instead is a workaround. Sadly, it's a workaround. So I have to come over here on child. I'm dispatching an event from this grandchild, right? So I can definitely listen to this event called a component button click. I can listen to this, so I can handle it over here. I can come over here and create this event. So if I come over here and I say in child.svelte and take a look at event.detail, hopefully this works. If I click yes, you can still see button 1, button 2. Right, so if I want to bubble up to the parent, like bubble, it does not bubble, right? So if I want my parent, which is in this parent.svelte, to able to listen to this event, I'll have to dispatch this event myself. So I have to come over here, import create event dispatcher. Whoops. And I am going to create this dispatch function. Whoops. And then I'm going to dispatch this event. Okay, so I'm going to dispatch. I'm going to use the same name so that the parent can listen to the same name as well. And I can come over here and pass in the same data, which is the event.detail. Right, so I'm going to come over here, paste it in comment. Okay, I can still leave it in. So with this in place, I can come over here to my parents and listen to it. I can listen to this component button click event console in parent.svelte and events.detail. Right, let's see. So I click yes, my child receives it, and then I dispatch the same. It's not the same event per se, but I dispatch a new event with the same event name and the same data, so that in the parent I can register, I can listen to that event, and I can log out the data as well, so I get the same data.
So you can
So
propagate
in
it
order
up,
for my
but
app.svelte,
you have to
over here to listen to it, I need
fuss
to do
about with
the
it.
same dance again. I need to come over here, copy
It's
this,
not fun.
paste this in. I have dispatch, come over here, dispatch the same event. So I'm gonna dispatch the same event name, which is component button click, so that in app.svelte I can listen to it. Alright, so the moment of truth, let's click the button, and now you see on component button click logs out the data, right? Finally, after passing one by one, it's like running a relay marathon where you relay the events from the grandchild to the child to the parent and then all the way to the app.svelte. So if you look up this on the Svelte website or documentation, it's called event forwarding. You forward the event from one place to the parents all the way to its parents to its parents, and therefore you achieve this event bubbling effect that you would get it normally in DOM elements. Of course, this is a lot of keystrokes to type, so Svelte comes up with a shorthand, right? Everything that is annoying, a lot of keystrokes, we have shorthands for it. So if you are listening to this event and you're going to dispatch the same event, right? You're dispatching the same event, you can come over here and just do this instead. So you can remove all this, and there you go. So you click,
What?
still works, right? You still dispatch all the way. So you listen to the events and dispatch to the parents and do like forward it, right? So it's the same thing that we've written so far, except that so let me keep this. I comment it out so that you can compare. So previously is you have to register your own event listeners and you do a dispatch your own. Now you forward it by just doing this. So I click again, everything works. You forward all the way to its
Okay,
parent.
that's a lot better.
So
I like.
there you have it, event forwarding shorthand. And this shorthand actually does not just apply to components. I have to show you that this actually applies to elements as well. So if I come over here and I do this, then this is actually the same shorthand of adding on shorthand of. So previously we were doing, okay, let me copy this and so that we can comment it out. Right, so previously we were adding event listeners to on click one and then dispatch this event. So if you do this, then this is the same as dispatching the event of the same name, right? Of this name. So this is the same as doing this on click on the button. So you can listen to. So if we want to forward all the way to the top, we do this. Copy this, forward it up, and then come over here at those fields and let's listen to this. So whoops, what's going on? So I have my inline event handlers. Okay, it's a bit hard to read, so I'm gonna just tap in. So I have my inline event handlers, and I'm gonna come over here and console log on click in @svelte, and I have, yeah, and there you go. And let's click on the click me 2, right? On component button click, and click me 1, which is on click in app.svelte. So you can use this shorthand on elements as well, on element on element events as well, DOM events as well. It will be the same as how writing this, right? So this code over here, it's not evaluated. We are not passing on click 1 to anywhere, right? So this is just to demonstrate that if you write this instead and dispatch click, then it will be exactly the same as using on :click shorthand. So when would you use this on DOM elements? Well, usually if you create a component that is kind of like a button and you button with a different styles, or you come up with an input with a different styles or different behaviors, more logics, and you want to bubble up the DOM events to the parent as well, so that if I come over here, have a custom button, and I have my button over here, as I say, a custom button, and I want to forward this DOM event, on click DOM event, to the parent as well, so that I can import custom event, custom button, and listen to click event. Then I can do this, right? This will save me time of having to register event listeners and then manually create event dispatcher and dispatch the same, create an event of the same name.
On the left side
Makes
of the
sense.
screen, I have a dummy website that we've built. This was built in
Shush.
Next.js.
Binding. What is this? I'm not sure. I'm a bit tired from all the things I've been doing today, so I might just leave it at that for now. Quick stream, but as well as. So basically reached the 2-hour mark. We've got some different things. Now relaying information to components and then from components, and also giving them actual functions that they can use to enact upon and interact with. Just nice. And there was also the dispatchers and propagating up to the child, the parent, which seems to make sense. I haven't implemented it because it just seems like it would be a fuss, and I can understand. So fun stuff. I'll save these, and yeah, leave it at that then. Sugar, yeah. No views at the moment. So sad. Anyway, fun stuff. We've got a warning. Love that. I'll see you whenever.